Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this week's devotional thought. I want to spend a few minutes today in a little book in the Old Testament named Ezra. And I just want to kind of think about this thought, this message for today, and that is an uncertain sound. And so let me kind of set the stage for where we're at in this particular book, in the third chapter of Ezra. The time is about 535 BC. They're in Jerusalem, and this chapter is set around the completion of the foundation as they are rebuilding the temple. So just a little bit of background here. Israel has, because of their disobedience, because they continue to worship idols when they were specifically told not to do this, the judgment of God came upon the people of Israel. And so in about 605 BC, the Babylonians captured Jerusalem. They carried most of the people away captivity into their homeland, and they were forced to live in this captivity for about the next 70 years. And so now we find the time about 539 BC. The Persians overthrow the Babylonians. He allows many of the people of Israel to go back home, maybe as many as 50,000 of them or so. And so one of the things that they set about doing was rebuilding the temple. So we're about 3 years into the time that they're back. And so Ezra describes in this third chapter as they're rebuilding the temple and they've laid and poured the foundation and the reaction that takes place when they lay the foundation. And it's a very puzzling kind of story in the reactions of the people at this time. So in the third chapter of Ezra, we find these words. Then all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and Levites who were heads of their fathers' houses, who were old men, who had seen the first temple, wept with a loud voice when the foundation of this temple was laid before their eyes. Yet many shouted for joy, so that the people could not discern the noise of the shout of joy from the noise of the weeping of the people. For some shouted with a loud shout, and the sound was heard afar off. So what we have here is the same event, but two different groups of people with two strikingly different responses to that. So let's take the older people first. It says that they were priests and Levites. They were head of their father's house, but they were older people. And just want to consider what they remembered during when this event takes place. They remembered the temple, the first one. That was their church. They remembered how splendid it was. They remembered that it was one of the ancient wonders of the world. The cost today would be unimaginable. It had the Ark of the Covenant there. It had the tablets that contained the Ten Commandments written on them. It was literally the dwelling place of God in their most holy place. That's what they remembered. And then what they realized was that this new temple would never be the same. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the gold. They didn't have the silver. They didn't have the craftsmen to do all the things that was done. It was going to be smaller, less majestic. The ark wasn't there. The tablets weren't there. And this realization broke their heart, and they wept because of it. Isn't that kind of the way many people, particularly my generation, my age group, and even older, isn't that kind of how we feel today? We long for what we refer to as the good old days. We long for a day when things weren't quite as complicated, maybe as complex as they are today. We look at modern culture and the modern church, and we want to cry out with despair. We want to say, God, why did you let all this happen? But yet, look at the other group that was here, the younger people. What did they remember that elicited such a response from them? They had no remembrance of the first temple and all of its splendor, but they most definitely remembered being in captivity, being a slave, having no freedom at all. Most of them, in fact, were born as slaves, and they felt like that was going to be their lot in life for the rest of their lives. Now they were back in their homeland. They were free to rebuild their temple, their church. They were free to rebuild their lives. What they realized was this is a new day of opportunity. It is full of potential, and they can make their lives to be anything that they wanted them to be. And because of this, they shouted for joy at the possibilities and thanked God for his deliverance. So here's the first thought. That is, it is easy to get caught up on either side. We can be so caught up in the past that we fail to see the opportunities that God has placed in front of us right now. Still others are so caught up in the newest trends and fads that they forget about what God has done in the past and the importance of what that means in bringing us to where we are today. And we know this, but sometimes we just have to be reminded, and that is that the past is gone forever. We can only live in the present. So we need to look at how and where God is working today. And we need to be thankful for the opportunities that he's giving us today. We don't want to be so tethered to the past that we totally miss what God is doing today. But we also can't be so caught up in the trends of the day that we fail to remember that God does not change. Our methods may change some, what we do may change some, but the God we serve, the God we worship, he doesn't change. What God was doing in my great-grandfather's day, he's still doing today. And that is that he is seeking to save that which was lost and away from him, and seeking to give those that do belong to him the gift of abundant life now and eternal life in the future. So here's the problem with both of those viewpoints that we saw in Ezra chapter 3. They both failed to take advantage of the opportunity that was right in front of them. How do I know this and why do I say this? Because in Ezra chapter 4, it tells us that once they laid that foundation, work on the temple stopped for the next 15 years. For 15 years, the people did nothing because the older people were so uncertain. They were so disappointed in what they saw happening that they just quit. And the younger people got so distracted and caught up in what was going on around them, they kind of did their own thing and forgot about the temple. And so both groups wound up failing to accomplish what God had asked them to do. So do you see the point here? And that is that it's not good to look back so longingly at something that's gone, nor is it so good to jump on the next, looks like the next best thing, the next trendy movement, and bounce around with no direction and get nothing done. What both groups should have done was to put all their efforts into what God had called them to, and to give that task their very best effort in the context that they found themselves. And so this story is very much relevant to what we see going on in the world around us. Many are discouraged, wonder whether the church can still be relevant in this modern culture that we live in. Others are frustrated because so many people in the church are so stuck in the ways that church has always been done for the last number of years that they don't want to embrace anything that's new. What ultimately happened here, that is that God raised up a prophet by the name of Haggai. He used him to be a catalyst to get this job done. He spoke forcefully to the people. He motivated them to get busy, and that's exactly what they did, and they wound up finishing that temple. So my question to you today is, which one of these groups would you consider yourself to be a part of? And what are we going to do now? We know we can't go back to the times of past. We know that we also don't need to embrace everything that comes along in the way of religion today. But can we seize the opportunities that we have been given in order to make a difference for His honor and for His glory? Hope this has been something that worth your consideration today. If you have any thoughts or comments about that, I'd love to speak with you further about that if you'd like to. If we can be of service to you, please reach out to us here at Cedar Crest. You can reach out to us on our website, www.ccbchurch.org. Love to serve you, visit with you in any way that we can. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.